Okay. Good afternoon. This is the 9th interview for the Redstone, an undergraduate journal of NUS Philosophy. It will be conducted by myself, Emma, and Nathaniel. We are student editors of the Redstone and very excited to talk to our guest today, Prof. Moonyoung. Yay! This is our studio audience.
Dr. Moonyoung Song is an assistant professor in the NUS Department of Philosophy. Prof. Moonyoung specialises in aesthetics and the philosophy of art. However, she also has interest in how these fields intersect with other fields, such as ethics, metaethics, metaphysics, and the philosophy of science, or with cognitive science and psychology. As a result, she can teach on a myriad of topics, as she does in our philosophy introductory course, Life, the Universe, and Everything. She also instructed courses on the philosophy of art and ethics at NUS.
So, Prof. Moonyoung has also published on these topics, most recently in her chapter in the Oxford Handbook of Ethics and Art. The chapter is entitled Distinguishing Between Ethics and Aesthetics, and it looks at how the two fields have been compared previously and synthesizes an account of their relationship.
How did you know that? I didn't post it on my website yet.
Yeah, I did my research.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we hope to discuss all these issues in our interview. Okay, so hi Prof. Yeah,
Hi.
how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you for interviewing me.
Yeah, no problem. We're very happy to talk to
so
you.
let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, you can go ahead and start.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe you could start us off with describing how your academic career has been and how you ended up at NUS, maybe.
So I did my undergraduate degree in Korea at Seoul National University, and also on MA there. And then I moved to the US and did my PhD there at the University of Maryland. And my supervisor was Gerald Levinson. And then I had a chance to do postdoc at the University of Michigan. And then I had the greatest opportunity of my life, which is to work at NUS. So
Wow.
that's how I ended up here.
Oh, that's great.
Nice. So, how have you found your NUS experience so far?
It's been great. Yeah. I mean, especially the students here are amazing. I mean, I'm being 100% honest right now. I cannot believe that there exist students like you guys. So yeah,
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
I'm very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, we are very lucky too.
So if you don't mind me asking, what's it like teaching in America compared to teaching here?
I mean, my students, my previous students might watch this. I think there are more diverse kinds of students in the US, at least at the university I taught. So some students there are as good as you guys, so they are self-motivated, very hardworking and so on, but there are also other students who are not very much like that. So my challenge there was to come up with some strategies that can appeal to both kinds of students. But I think students here are pretty homogeneous in a good way. So most of students here are self-motivated and diligent and so on. So I don't really need to worry about another kind of students. Yeah.
So it's like one less thing to worry about.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So now that we're discussing your experience teaching, especially teaching in NUS, what has been a very enjoyable course to teach in NUS for you?
I have to pick just one.
I mean, it's not that it'll be your favorite, but it's like one that you'd like to say something about.
I would say different courses are enjoyable for different reasons. So a higher level course, like a 4,000 level course, that kind of course is enjoyable because I can actually learn from students there because they are very advanced students. So I feel that I'm not really teaching. It feels more like I'm talking about philosophy with my peers. So yes, so that's one thing that is very enjoyable about that. But a course like the Life, Universe, and Everything, where most of the students are taking a philosophy course for the first time is enjoyable for a different reason because it's quite enjoyable and exciting to teach beginners because they find almost everything really exciting and interesting. so an argument that would not be very exciting to like advanced students, they find it super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something really rewarding and enjoyable about teaching beginners.
Right. So you're teaching Life the Universe and everything for the first time, right? This semester.
Right.
So do you have any expectations or goals going into this experience?
I just want the class to go well and there won't be any disaster. But
A very modest goal.
That's my goal. I mean, it's the same for any course I teach. I want the students to gain something that will make their lives a little bit better in one way or another. It doesn't need to be like the knowledge I teach them. It could be something more non-tangible, perhaps just how to think. That's a skill, not knowledge, or just some kind of attitude, like being more open-minded and modest, things like that. I think that kind of attitude will make people's lives go better. Generally speaking. So that's my goal.
I think that's a great goal.
Yeah.
So now that you're teaching this course, because we've all taken the course before, so we noticed that you've added your own kind of spin on the course, right? So you've added in a few topics that is more in your niche interests. So how do you think the students will receive these interests, since they're a little bit unusual for NUS, like our typical philosophy course?
Like a topic in aesthetics.
Yes.
I mean, I hope they will enjoy it. Because I added it because that's what I do, and if an aesthetician doesn't teach an aesthetics topic in an intro course, who would?
Right. Exactly.
A bit of a wasted opportunity.
And I actually don't think it doesn't really matter in an intro course what topics we teach, because again, I don't think we are teaching knowledge. We are teaching the skill of thinking philosophically, and when it comes to that skill, it doesn't really matter which topics are covered in the intro course.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the intro course. So maybe we can ask Prof a bit more about her own interest in aesthetics.
Oh yeah. So I guess the question we'd like to start off with is maybe how did you start off studying aesthetics as like a field in philosophy?
I mean, it was my first love. So it's not like I took some intro to philosophy course and moved on to aesthetics. For me, aesthetics was what got me interested in philosophy in the first place. So actually, my major when I entered university first wasn't philosophy or aesthetics. It was medicine. Then I danced as a hobby, and then I became interested in some philosophical topics related to dance and art. So I started to read some books on that topic, and that got me interested in philosophy. So I decided to switch my major.
So that's actually a great segue into our next question, which is, what exactly were these books that inspired you, and would you recommend them to our students?
I mean, I'm not sure whether I should recommend it to you guys because it's not that those books are particularly good or anything, because I didn't even know that there was such a field of study.
It could be like just any book that you'd like to recommend, maybe. Then.
Yeah. Maybe for someone who's like dipping their toes into aesthetics for the first time, maybe.
Okay. That's a really difficult question.
Yeah. I realize that now.
Yeah, this is a bit tough.
I'm not sure whether I would recommend this, but one of the books that I read when I first got interested in aesthetics was George Dickey's book. I think the title was Art World or something like that. So it's about the definition of art, and he defines art not in terms of some properties of art that we can perceive, like beauty or things like that. So for him, art is just what the institution of artwork granted the status of artwork. That's all. So first, the idea is quite thought-provoking, and he's a very clear writer. So I was just happy to discover that there exists a study of field like that.
Right. Yeah. So maybe instead of books is a bit tough.
Okay.
What are some maybe works of art that have like inspired you?
Mm-hmm.
Philosophically?
Sure.
Just
Whatever.
Any
let me
significant works of art like you
Or
felt
artists.
very inspired by?
It seems like it's also a hard question. Yeah. I think we came up with hard questions.
Yes.
One of the artists that I found very interesting when I first studied aesthetics was Robert Mapplethorpe. He was a photographer, and he took pictures of gay people, and his works are very sexually explicit. And he was also gay himself. He's now dead, but what I liked about his works is that he doesn't depict his object, gay people, as just some kind of objects. He treats them as just the same kind of people as anyone else. And I mean, it's interesting how photographs can do it, because there are no words written in a photograph. It's just an image. But still, the way the photographs were taken kind of have some message, which is that these people are the same kind of people as the rest of us. Yeah. I mean, if you look up his works, you will see what I meant. So the subjects in his photographs are perfectly confident, and the title of a photograph is usually the real name of the subject. And it was from several decades ago, so at that time, homosexuality was a taboo, even in the US.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, I can see that it's a field where there's a lot of like emotion that is involved. Do you ever feel like you get like very personally involved in your work as a result?
In my philosophy work?
Sure, yeah.
I don't think I'm very emotionally involved in my philosophical work. I think I would be fine if someone raised a really strong objection to my arguments, and it turns out that actually they are right. I would be happy to just accept that. So I'm not emotionally involved in my work that way.
Okay,
Maybe there are
that's good
That's
for
fine.
you. Very healthy. Yeah.
But that actually hasn't happened yet, so you never know how I will react when that actually happens.
So we'll see when it happens. Yeah, if it happens, more like, yeah. So we can talk a bit about your work then. Like the book chapter that I accidentally spoiled. Yeah, so I did a bit of research into your publications and things. Just if you'd like to share a bit about this, it's an upcoming book chapter, or has it been published already?
I think it's now published.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yay!
Go check it out.
Yeah. So if you'd like to just like talk about it or the process behind it, any thoughts?
Okay, I'm not sure if I can recall what I wrote. It's been a while since I wrote it. So it's about the distinction between aesthetics and ethics. You might think that that's not a very interesting topic. Obviously, those two things are different, right? But surprisingly, there has been some philosophers in the past who thought that they are basically the same thing. So I talk about those philosophers.
Right.
And in what ways, if they were indeed wrong, in what ways aesthetics and ethics are different. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So generally your work right now is kind of you're kind of focusing on explanation, right?
Yes.
So is this like, did you happen to use this in the book chapter, or was it like a separate thing altogether? You're making a recall now.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it's my fault. Yeah, I don't think that chapter is directly related to explanation.
Yeah. So maybe we can talk about another work of yours, which is you had an article on the selectivity of aesthetic explanation, right?
Yes.
So if you'd like to share a bit about that article instead, that's even further back.
So I found it really interesting that on whether an artwork has a certain aesthetic property, for instance, it is elegant or not, depends on a lot of lower level properties. So in the paper, my example is a sculpture. So the sculpture is elegant, but the fact that it is elegant depends on the size of the sculpture, because if it were really large or if it were really small, it wouldn't be elegant. It would be overwhelming or cute. So in that sense, the sculpture's elegance depends on the size of the sculpture. But no one really would explain why the sculpture is elegant, referring to its size, right?
Right.
So instead, people will refer to things like the shape of the sculpture or something like that. So it seems that there is a distinction between some properties that people refer to when they explain aesthetic properties, and the other properties they don't refer to. But the presence of aesthetic property depends on both of these properties. So the question is then what makes the difference between these two kinds of properties? So that's the question the paper addresses.
I see. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, please don't ask me about the answer.
We'll move past this. We should have let you revise before. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can ask some questions about like art in general. Like, do you mind me if I ask, like, do you like dabble in any art forms yourself?
Yeah, I danced a little bit as a hobby.
Oh.
And still okay. I do. Yeah.
What kind of dance?
I tried several different kinds of dance. The kind of dance I'm currently interested in is Argentine tango dance. So I took some classes before the pandemic, but now I kind of stopped, but I will resume very soon.
Okay, that's cool. So how does your field of study sort of relate to that? Does it ever come into...
When you really like something as a hobby, if you philosophize it just stops being...
It can be so miserable at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, you don't bring work into this, you know?
Yeah.
But okay, maybe something along that lines. Like philosophy as an occupational hazard. When you go to like a museum, do you tend to like find the need to explain everything? Or maybe even something as simple as picking an outfit in the morning. Do you overthink these things as a result?
Or maybe like when you're trying to watch like a movie and you sort of like start over-analyzing it.
Right.
And then you can't really enjoy like just like a bad movie, for example.
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting question. But I think, so someone said there are two kinds of aestheticians. The first kind are aestheticians who are really familiar with art theories and the history of art, so they're very sophisticated in terms of art. And there's the second kind who do not know much about art, but they just like the philosophy of art. which is a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people told me that I belonged to the second category. So it's not that I do not want to like overanalyze artworks. I don't think I have the ability to do so properly. Maybe that's a good thing for me. Yeah.
So this undermines one of my questions. Right. So one of my questions was actually because you tend to wear black a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask if this was an aesthetic choice. But it could still, it's still a valid question.
Yeah.
Right?
It's partly aesthetic, partly practical. Partly aesthetic because I think I look good when I wear black clothes, like compared to other colors. But it is also practical because it's low maintenance and so on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's like I think that was the main question for the
Yes.
interview.
That's right. That's what a lot of people wanted to know.
That's the reason why you guys wanted to interview
We set this
me.
whole up. Yeah. So okay. So now that we're on the extremely, very deeply personal questions, right? Like that one. Yeah. So maybe we can ask something a little bit more personal. So okay. So I guess maybe this was my own something I really wanted to ask you as well. And it's that as a woman in philosophy,
Right.
have you faced any significant challenges, or maybe it's even been a good experience? Yeah.
I mean, I think I haven't faced a really serious challenge. There have been some minor challenges. I'm not sure whether I should tell you this story or not because this is exactly what you want, right? This kind of story. So I will not mention the names of the people involved. But just so in the past when I went to a party where there were lots of philosophers, I heard from someone indirectly that a very old man at the party asked another person who told me about this, whose partner I am. So to that person's mind, the possibility of me being a philosopher myself didn't occur. Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
So when a young, maybe non-white woman is at a party where there are lots of philosophers, chances are she is the partner of another philosopher.
The assumption is that she can't be a philosopher herself,
exactly.
Right? That's really terrible. Very sorry that happened to you.
Yes, okay, but yeah.
But now you have lots of adoring students.
Yeah, so I think that kind of, I mean, I don't think that person consciously think of all the possibilities, that person is a non-white woman, therefore she cannot be a philosopher. It wasn't conscious, it was more unconscious bias. So in terms of unconscious biases, I think there are still challenges for women. But
for sure.
Yeah, things are much better than before. That's definitely true.
Yeah, that's very promising. That's nice. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, it sounds like it must have been difficult, even though I know it's unconscious, but it still will be hurtful all the same. So yeah. I'm glad that things are looking up since. So okay, let's see. More on your personal experience, but also in a professional capacity. Given that I think you are the only aesthetician in NUS right now, in the faculty.
I would say the only one who does aesthetics exclusively.
Okay.
I mean, Ben does aesthetics too, but he does also other things.
Right. So it's like your main specialty.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. So, that makes it better. So, have you had any interesting collaborations with the other faculty or discussions?
Not yet. So, I mean, we talk about philosophy all the time.
Right.
But I haven't actually written any paper in collaboration with other faculty members. Yeah, because sometimes I find it very interesting that my ideas about a topic in aesthetics are very similar to other faculty members' ideas about something completely different. So yeah, that kind of thing happened, but yeah, we haven't decided to write a paper together or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. Okay, but it's nice to kind of see like how you can have like fruitful conversations with people who study completely different stuff. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, going in a different direction. As a educator in NUS, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges you face, or maybe a kind of maybe a fear or worry that you have when educating young minds?
At NUS in particular?
Maybe if you have a specific experience here, but otherwise it can be in general.
I don't think there are serious challenges at NUS. As I said, you guys are just really good, and I'm lucky to be here. If you call this a challenge, the fact that you guys are really good, intelligent, is kind of challenging for us, because unless we are really well prepared, we might have to face a question that the answer which we are not very sure, or something like that. So we have to really well prepared. So I think it's a good thing. But
happy problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We are simply too good.
Sure.
Okay, so maybe related to your teaching, have there been any topics that you haven't taught yet that you would want to teach in the future, maybe?
Yeah, actually there is one. So if I have a chance to teach a 4,000 level course again, like issues in aesthetics, I'd like to teach art and morality. So there are some topics related to art and morality, such as when an artwork is immoral, does that decrease its artistic value? And what should we do about a work of art made by an immoral artist? Something like that, yeah.
Oh, that's actually very interesting.
Yeah, because I can think of many instances where art has been made by immoral people.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big issue now, right? Because of cancel culture and all this.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will take this. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And NUS, get working on it. Yeah. Okay.
I think related to that, do you have a way of defining what is art and what is good art per se?
So the first question is about the definition of art.
Yeah.
And the second question is about the artistic value.
Yeah.
Are you asking whether I have theories about those things?
Yeah, I guess so.
As for the first topic, I'm actually not sure whether we could ever come up with a satisfactory definition of art in terms of a necessary and sufficient condition. I think almost any concept that is used in our daily lives is vague, and there are always some cases in the gray area. So I'm very skeptical that we would be able to define art in terms of a necessary and sufficient condition. Maybe that doesn't mean that we cannot define art at all. Perhaps there is some other way of defining a concept other than using a necessary and sufficient condition. But yeah, so that's just my view. So maybe that just means I don't have a view at all.
That's fine.
Yeah.
About the second topic, artistic value. Again, I'm not sure whether I have any considered view on that. I'm working on a paper which is indirectly related to that topic, and the topic of that paper is whether there are any general principles about artistic value, and there are argued that there is actually one thing that always counts in favor of artistic value, and it is creativity.
Okay.
So I don't have a view about artistic value, what exactly artistic value is, but at least my claim is that whatever it exactly is, creativity should always count in favor of it. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And sounds about right to me.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. So I would like to ask a bit more about all your different interests, because there was a lot, right? So
Yes.
Nat had to read all of that just now. Yeah. So you're interested in ethics, metaethics, metaphysics, philosophy of science. I'm really interested in the philosophy of science one. Yeah. I want to see how that like links up.
Oh, really? First, a disclaimer. I wrote that on my website. So I made a website when I went on the job market.
Right.
Since people do not like an aesthetician who just only does aesthetics, I just try to make myself look like I do other things.
Oh, that's so bad. You are so relatable, bro.
I got lazy after I got this job and
Right,
haven't updated my website. That's the reason why it's still there.
Okay. Question answered. Yeah.
About the relation to the philosophy of science, explanation is a topic in the philosophy of science.
Right.
So I think my paper, for instance, on the selectivity of aesthetics is related to the philosophy of science. So there I talk about the selectivity of causal explanation. So the question I just talked about before, we have these two groups of properties. So the aesthetic property depends on both, but somehow we only cite this one, not this one. So why? So a parallel problem exists in the philosophy of science about causal explanation. So for instance, let's say a fire occurred in a forest, and we would say, oh, the cause of the fire was something like someone dropping a lit cigarette or something. We do not cite the presence of oxygen, despite the fact that the fire depends on the presence of oxygen.
Right.
So the question is, then what's the difference between dropping the lit cigarette, which we cite, and the presence of oxygen we do not cite?
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Would you describe then your approach to aesthetics, at least in that paper, as a scientific approach? Or would it just be adapting a sort of scientific notion of explanation?
I wouldn't call it a scientific approach because that sounds like an empirical approach. It sounds like we do some experiments in a lab or something, but that's not what we do. So, yeah, so the philosophy of science is not necessarily scientific, right? It's an area of philosophy. So, in that sense of scientific, I don't think my approach is scientific. So, yeah.
Yeah, that seems clear now. Okay, yeah. So, Nat, do you have any questions that you want to go to?
Maybe this one.
Yeah, I wanted it to be the last one, that's why.
I'm scared.
Yeah, but I think we've mostly covered everything.
Yes.
We could take questions from the floor. Right. So, okay, now you can go ahead and ask her the last question. Yeah.
So, as a philosopher of art yourself, do you have any advice for aspiring philosophers of art, or maybe philosophers in general?
Could you say a little bit more about what kind of advice you were thinking about?
Maybe we can start with like philosophical advice, maybe. Like,
Okay.
I'm thinking like advice related to philosophy rather than like academia or like career wise, you know?
I don't really know.
How to become a better philosopher or something like that?
Yeah, I think something like that.
I mean, there must be a lot of things that might help you become a better philosopher. But I think one thing is something that I mentioned earlier, which is to be open-minded and be humble and being willing to accept that your view could be wrong when someone else raises a good objection to it. I think that makes you a better philosopher. Yeah. Of course, you shouldn't do it all the time, especially when you're a woman. Actually, when I was a graduate student, a faculty member who's a woman told me that you should not concede too easily.
Right.
or women do that all the time. So, yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
I think I
But
could all use
you
that.
should do it when the objection is really good.
Yeah. Okay.
Then maybe career-wise, do you have any advice with regards to that? Would you have any advice to give to like an undergraduate student who is like thinking of pursuing philosophy in grad school and further on?
This is a difficult one. Because as you guys might know, it's very competitive to
Yes.
get a job as a philosopher. And even worse, whether you can get a job or not is not really a function of your ability or how much effort you make or things like that. It depends on a lot of factors that are not within your control. So it's based on luck to a very great extent. So my advice then would be, you should think about whether you'd regret your decision to go to graduate school if at the end of the day you cannot get a job in philosophy and you have to get some other kind of job. If you think you like philosophy so much that you wouldn't regret your decision, even in that kind of situation, you would be happy that you have at least tried, then yeah, you should go for it. But if you have other alternatives that seem as attractive to you and you feel conflicted and you think you would regret your decision, then maybe you should think more carefully.
I think that's very good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a nice note to
Yes.
kind of wrap things up on. But I do have one more question. One last question. Yeah. Which is that if you could ask a genie for anything, what would you ask for?
Wow.
So a little bit of context is that
Yeah.
Prof actually posed this question herself to all the students in GET 1029. But she didn't give her own answer. So yeah, I thought it's our duty to figure it out. Yeah.
You can't say more wishes.
Yeah. I mean, I actually thought about the question, but I wasn't very sure.
It's a difficult question.
So I have 3 wishes, right?
Well, I mean, it's your scenario.
I think that I will use the first wish since I have 2 more for the course I'm teaching right now, because it is really important for me this semester that the course goes well. So I want the course to be
Wow.
very successful.
That's nice. Yeah.
And the second one should be something about my career, becoming a better philosopher or something like that. I'm not sure about what should be my last wish. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it should be something like a bit more abstract or
Yeah. I'm actually not sure what
it's
to
a
wish
very
for.
difficult question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wouldn't know what I would wish for either. Like,
Money, power, wisdom, happiness.
yeah, all very good answers. We don't know what's the right one. Maybe there's no right one. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So, is everybody satisfied with the answer? Yeah. Otherwise, we can just wrap it up here. Thank you, Prof, so much for
Thank you,
your
Prof.
time.
For interviewing me.
It's been so fun to interview you.
Same here. Thank you.
Yay!